This Family Life News podcast is made possible by the support of listeners like you.
This is Capital Connection. Fridays during the Noon Report, we give you direct connection to all that's happening in Albany and Harrisburg with the experts on the issues at the state capitals. They are Jason McGuire with New York Families and Michael Gear at the Pennsylvania Family Institute. Well, welcome back to the program, guys. We've got much to discuss. Jason, I'll begin with you. There are some candlelight vigils happening at various places all over New York this week to try and persuade Governor Hochul not to sign a doctor-assisted suicide bill into law. If you would let us know what the governor is thinking here. She's got less than a month to go before she has to sign or veto that bill.
Yeah, that's right, Bob. There have been candlelight vigils in Western New York in the Capital District. In fact, I was in front of the governor's mansion on Wednesday night urging her to veto assisted suicide. And then just last night, there were rallies in Manhattan and in Syracuse urging the governor to reject this bill. The bottom line is, once you open that Pandora's box, you just can't close it. And I hope the governor realizes that, because we are hearing that there have been chapter amendments proposed. Now, without getting too far into the weeds, that essentially is an agreement between the governor and the legislature that she may sign assisted suicide, believing that the legislature will pass some of her agreed-upon amendments early next year. Some of those amendments, for example, would require a residency requirement for those who would seek assisted suicide. You have to be a resident of New York to get it. Mm-hmm. The problem is that's already been defeated in the courts. The governor appears to be looking for a way to really split the baby on this one, but she's got to know that this is not a winning strategy.
Yeah. Next year's an election year. Nobody knows that more than the governor. She is Roman Catholic. This is an issue that's very important to Catholics. There are not a lot of states that allow assisted suicide for good reason. How risky politically is this for the governor if she signs this bill?
Well, the governor is a convenient Catholic, and what I mean by that is she likes to say she's a Catholic, but she rejects the church's teaching when it comes to the sanctity of human life, and that's the issue here. Again, she's trying to have it both ways, to position herself as a person of faith so she can win that vote, but at the same time rejects the church's teaching when it comes to so many of these moral issues that we care about. It is a dangerous position for her to take, because this is an issue that can ignite the base in 2026. Yeah. We are hopeful that the governor will reject the legislation, but we are prepared to inform voters across the state as to her stance should it come to that.
All right. Well, assisted suicide is still illegal in Pennsylvania, thank God, but abortion is not, Michael. And Planned Parenthood activists are rallying for abortion rights at the state capitol. They were there in droves last month. They want to eliminate any and all barriers to abortion in PA. Explain to our audience, what are some of the ways that they hope to accomplish this?
Well, they have a number of bills, 7 bills that have passed out of the Judiciary Committee last month. One of them would include a constitutional amendment that would basically expand abortion till birth, but also then force taxpayer funding of abortion. They also are pushing legislation that would remove any parental protections and consent for abortion, would take out any safety requirements that have been put in place after the Kermit Gosnell abortion clinic scandal. But they're also using this for election purposes. They're going into 2026 knowing there will be state legislative races involved, and they want to gin up their base, and this is a clarion call to pro-lifers that you need to be involved in the election coming up in 2026.
Yeah. Moving on, Jason, there was a Supreme Court case this week, a very important one that could have profound implications on pro-life pregnancy resource centers. This case has to do with one of those centers in New Jersey. Why should New York voters pay attention to this?
Yeah, there's really 2 issues as I see it regarding that particular case. And you're referring to the first choice case out of New Jersey, where essentially the Attorney General there came into a pro-life pregnancy center and said, we want to see 10 years of your donor information and other records from this pregnancy center. There were no charges. There was no reports here of anything that would cause the investigation. This really was an intimidation factor. And so this is an opportunity to protect the pro-life centers in New Jersey and frankly, all across America, including the 11 that are being sued here in New York under our Attorney General, Letitia James. Second, this is an important case because it is broader than just pregnancy centers. This can impact all 501c3 nonprofit organizations like New Yorkers Families Foundation, the work that we're working on here. And frankly, I believe we've experienced some of this lawfare under the Attorney General. And so this case could have implications for even organizations like mine and Michael's and others across the country.
Well, Michael, there's a great debate in Harrisburg these days about whether or not to make the full-time state legislature part-time. Is it time to make the move? I know it would take a constitutional amendment, but is that something that your organization would support?
I think we do support it. I think Jason and I both would tell you that the full-time legislature is not a ton of fun. They can get into mischief year-round, and only about 7 to 10 states have these full-time legislatures. I look at a state like Texas that has a part-time legislature that only meets every other year. If they can govern a state much larger there in Texas with a part-time legislature, I think we could do it here as well.
Well, Jason, State Senator Liz Krueger likes to make news, and she made news again earlier this week, sponsoring a bill that would make divorce easier. I want to ask you, instead of making divorce easier, what are some ways that New York can strengthen marriage in the Empire State?
Yeah, it's disappointing that really the role of public policy always seems to be making divorce easier rather than strengthening marriage where it can.
Yeah.
Just to start with, I think the government could actually start supporting the notion, the idea that marriage between a man and a woman is really what is required to be successful for these kids. You know, it is in the child's best interest to have a mom and a dad. And just taking a public policy position that would be unafraid to acknowledge that would go so far in this state. But let's not leave it just to government. Let's recognize that it is the role of the church also. When the body of Christ can speak to that issue and unashamedly declare it, celebrate it, love it, help this younger generation, which seems more reticent to marriage in general, to see the benefits of marriage and what a blessing it is. If they can affirm that, well, I think that will be the quickest way to turn things around for future generation.
Michael, I want to continue that thought. Young people are waiting longer than ever to get married. The average age for a first-time marriage right now is 30 for a man, 28 for a woman. Are there benefits to waiting longer to get married, or should we do more, the church and the state, do more to encourage marriage earlier in life?
Well, I think there's people who could point to what they would say are a few benefits, but ultimately I don't think what those things would be in any way outweigh getting married earlier. There's so many benefits to getting married that Jason has already pointed out, not the least of which is early childbirth opportunities. As you get older in life, fertility drops significantly. The opportunity to have children, which many people then later in life regret, I wish I had more children or had children at all. And when you wait to get married until those later ages, that becomes a problem. The other thing is later marriage also creates a situation where we have more abortion, because when people put off getting married, that's the typical time when abortion is being sought because of jobs, because of other things that people think, well, in this situation, I shouldn't get married.
Yeah, and you hear so many young people today, Gen Zers, say, I can't get married, I don't have enough money. If that's your argument, you'll never get married because there'll always be not enough money. Jason, where we're picking on Gen Zers, a majority of them, according to recent surveys, have a favorable view of socialism. Why is this worldview so attractive to younger voters, and how can conservatives tap into that angst over the affordability crisis right now?
Well, I don't mean to be condescending in any way, but I do think there is a misunderstanding and a lack of information about what socialism really is. It leads to the deaths of millions of people. That is ultimately where we are. It is not a good position for a younger generation to take. What I think they're reacting to is there is this kind of pushback against crony capitalism. They're seeing a lack of affordability, and they're seeing maybe these enormous wages coming from certain executives, and yet the average worker is struggling to pay their bills. You know, you think about where we are today as opposed to where we were in the 50s and what it would take to afford a home and a car and put a kid through college on a single income. Today, with two incomes, it's still very, very difficult to get by. So I think there's a reaction that's happening, and every time the conservative side can propose solutions that lead to real affordability, well, that's how I think we can win back a younger generation on some of these issues.
Yeah, great point. Michael, we'll end with you. There's a compelling article on your website this week. We'll give the address in a minute. It's entitled, When Political Conversations Become Gospel opportunities. So often we're afraid to intertwine politics and religion, but in this article, you argue politics can be a gateway to reaching people for Christ. How so?
Well, I think there's a connection between conservatism and Christianity, not that they're one and the same, but Christianity and conservatism point to objective truth. When you look at the progressive mindset that says that there are things like birthing persons or that men can give birth, many people just say, well, hey, wait a minute, that seems kind of crazy. And then they start asking questions, where are these ideas coming from? And it presents an opportunity to then talk about objective reality. There is a creator, that there are certain truths that nature points to, and then as we point to those truths in nature, we can point to the God who created this world in which we live.
All right, a great article as well. If folks want to go online and read that article, When Political Conversations Become Gospel Opportunities. Michael, where can they do that online?
pafamily.org.
And learn more about these candlelight vigils happening this week against assisted suicide, a big conversation right now. Jason, where can folks find out more?
NewYorkFamilies.org.
Thank you for listening to this Family Life News podcast. If you've been encouraged by what you've heard, please share it with others and click the subscribe button to automatically receive future episodes. Family Life is a listener-supported ministry. Podcasts like this are made possible by your financial partnership. Find out more at familylife.org.